Hey, Laura, thank you so much for being with me today. I am super excited to talk with you because you have a lot of life lessons to teach us. But before we kind of get to the meat of the interview, I kind of wanted people to know about you and how you came to be a doctor of physical therapy and fitness and your kind of overall philosophy around health.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. How did I become a PT? I'll tell you exactly how. Played sports growing up my whole life, and I got injured very early, like in 12. Tore my ACL in my knee, tore many ligaments in my knee, and ended up getting surgery, like many girls do at that age, with that play sports. And I had the most badass physical therapists, and I was just like enamored by the entire process. They got me from being literally not able to walk to back playing on the field, and that just lit something inside of me. I was like, I want to be these women when I grow up. Fast forward to grad school, undergrad. I actually started out in business, a business degree, and I was like, this isn't for me. And so I switched junior year and into science, and that was a whole thing. Went to grad school and then went on to go get my doctorate in the field and study for the licensure exam, and here we are, 20 years later, 15 years later.
Wow, that is so awesome. So you've evolved though, I think, right? So you were doing straight up PT, but then you became a fitness trainer and you have this whole philosophy behind that, right? To be doing it outside and being badass and
All that. So yes, well, I was actually a trainer first. I started training clients in graduate school. They were not allowed to work, but I was like, I can't survive in Manhattan without any money. So I was like, I could either be a waitress or just kind of apply what I'm learning in school to the gym. So I became a trainer. So it was all very much at the same time period. Graduated school, in debt up to here, and I was like, well, we got to start training clients. And I got in on the ground floor of boot camps outdoors in Central Park, and I was like, this is the best way. I'm a former athlete. Fitness and movement to me is outside in the grass, sun shining, air. Like in a small dark little gym, it's like that's not, that wasn't for me. It didn't resonate because that wasn't movement for me. So I started these outdoor programs, and as I like moved on in my career as a physical therapist, I was also training all of these women, like 60 women at a time, 50 women at a time, at 5:30 in the morning in Central Park. So the philosophy,
wow,
right?
that's
So the
amazing.
so the philosophy behind that is like you don't need a gym to move your body. Like why is that the defining factor? And I feel like so many people, especially women, get caught up like this is what it has to be. We have to show up in our outfit, we got to do the spin class and do the thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
But like what if you don't have access to that? Cut to the pandemic when nobody has access to that. So it's like this is the mantra sort of that I try to instill in people, that like don't wait for the perfect circumstances. Movement can look like anything you want it to be, even outside on a park bench or on a grass field.
I feel like that helps you also with your survival skills, right? I mean, you got to make it work wherever you are. And there's a lot of competing like mental factors, and I feel like you're also being creative as well, which could be fun.
It is very fun. A theme is like making something out of nothing. It didn't come from the greatest childhood, and I'm sort of used to. I have this honed skill set to make truly like make something great out of not much. So it's like what was a survival skill has now grown into a beautiful business and something to help women and people in general, men too as well, um, because we often get so bogged down that we think things just have to be in one way, and we get a chance to explore what just feels right for you, feels right for your body, for your mindset in that day.
Wow, that's awesome. That's so awesome. Um, which kind of parlays into your life. I mean, you've had as an athlete, you're kind of like a superhero in many ways, right? In the eyes of your students and that sort of thing. Like nothing can get you down and that sort of thing. But you've had actually numerous challenges along the way, which kind of had to help you mentally and physically. Um, do you want to share a little bit about that story or
Sure
those
do.
stories, rather?
How much time do we have for this podcast? No. Um, yeah. So I think it's survival, and pulling yourself out of complete hell and darkness is a skill set. And I think a lot of us think, me included, that like people are just born that way and they're so resilient and they can just make it. When it turns out that you have to learn those skills, in my opinion, in my experience, starting from high school when I was knocked down from being this star athlete, you know, to actually doing that again, tearing my knee, getting in surgery again when I was mid 30s, and then when I got a mammogram and my breast implant exploded, and I became very ill for about 2 years.
So,
Too recently, yeah,
why don't you go back? So you had gotten the implants when?
I was 22, first year of grad school. I don't know if it's in my defense or not. A gym I was working for like offered me a free procedure. And I was just this like, don't know myself, self-esteem. Let's do this thing to make me feel whatever. And I made the decision and got him 22.
Wow. And then so it was fine until you got the mammogram.
Totally fine. Totally fine. Yeah. And I started feeling sick, and no doctor could tell me. Endocrinologist, cardiologist. I was having awful symptoms all over my body until someone sent me a post of a model who said her breast implants made her sick, and when she had them removed, she was better. And I was like, oh my God, that's what's happening to me.
Wow.
And I found,
What kind of symptoms were you having?
I mean, intense brain, like my eyesight would just go like, about 2 to 3 times a day. I could not cognitively focus on anything. I have a master's degree, a doctorate. I could not think on any high level. So my business started to suffer. My relationships started to suffer. It was like intense flu symptoms every 2 days for about 2 days. So I'm supposed to be this picture of health. I felt like a fraud. Supposed to be telling people how to like live their lives and survive and be great, and I felt, and emotionally, physically, and mentally, the worst I ever had felt.
And then, so how long did it take you to realize that it was the implants that was causing this and it wasn't something else?
It was about a year and a half till I finally figured it out, and at that point I was suicidal. I forgot all the skill set I learned in the previous injury, like years before, with having to speak to someone and manage my expectations of myself. Because like I said, I'm this fitness professional and I am literally like eating garbage and laying on the couch wanting to commit suicide. So it's like I forgot everything. It wasn't until I got them out when my brain cleared, the brain fog they call it, cleared. And I was like, oh, I really need to help myself here. We need to get back to who I was.
Wow. So, I mean, at what point, I'm a huge advocate for being your own advocate
Yeah.
in the medical field, and that this happens so often where a doctor will tell you, I don't know, you need to take this pill, or, let me give you some antibiotics or whatever. And a lot of people just have like that white coat syndrome, right? And they won't say anything. They just listen and they're like, okay. And they won't push. And it's really, they're trained in a certain way. And it's like, if you don't fit the textbook description of what you're feeling, it's just hard for them to prescribe. And so tell me a little bit about kind of like how you came to really advocate for yourself and
Yeah.
your thoughts on that.
Like in that medical situation or just in life?
Both.
Yeah. It was the final doctor that I went to, an endocrinologist who was a woman. And I know women of color get treated way worse than I did. Like they are listened to even less and just told to just go home, you're fine. So the fact that I was being treated so poorly, I was like, wow, like this, it could have been so much worse, which, whatever. The last woman told me, are you depressed? And I'm like, I'm telling you, my heart, my brain, my lungs, like my eyesight. And she goes, I'm like, well, what does depressed mean? She goes, I don't know, like you cry a lot. I'm like, you know what, this is over. Is that the definition of depression? Like maybe, but like what? So I went home so defeated, and that's when I was like, the white coat syndrome, like you speak about, I am in medicine. I know, like, and I couldn't help myself. I just would go to these doctors, like hoping for an answer, like, tell me what's wrong with me. I'm dying. And it wasn't until I went on, like I said, social media. And that's how I found a community of women all talking about the same things in these chat groups, these local chat groups, the same story. I'm like, that's my story. That's my story. This cannot be a coincidence. Thousands and thousands and thousands of women. And I was like, this is it. I set the appointment, went to one doctor, called him, made the appointment, and I got them out. And I got the date of that surgery here because that's the day that like I got my life back.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
And so did you feel better like almost immediately, or did it take some while? Really?
immediately. Immediately. I mean, it felt like garbage the day I woke up, like in anesthesia, and like it was a lot of pain or whatever. But the brain fog lifted within 3 days. Once I started recovering, and we can talk about how I sort of got myself back, um, I started to realize like the cloud lifted of depression a little bit because I was like, wow, I have an answer, and this really was real. Because you doubt yourself when all the professionals are telling you that you're not, and it's probably in your head, and sleep more. Like I sleep 9 hours a day during the day because I can't live. Um, so being your own advocate and never taking no for an answer. As much as I was defeated and sad, I just kept pushing forward. And the recovery process, like from any medical procedure, I had to adjust my expectations of who I was. And I think a lot of your listeners and a lot of people out there, and my patients as well, when you come injured or you have a surgery, who you were, I used to work out 5 days a week. I used to do cardio. I used to ride my bike to my client. And when you're stuck on who you were, you lose what's right in front of you. When you don't manage your expectations for what you can achieve today, you are constantly ashamed of yourself, constantly upset with no compassion. So the recovery takes so much longer because you want to be who you were. You're never going to be who you were. And I think I know that was the biggest take home, to constantly put yourself forward one day at a time. And what a way to do that is, which this is how my brain works. I'm very much into like, how am I feeling and my emotions, but also what are the physical outcomes? Like we do in physical therapy, you come back from surgery, we test your strength. Where's your strength at? Where's your range of motion? Where's your balance looking like? What's your balance looking like? It's the same thing with recovering from any kind of emotional strain. It's like I just kept looking day by day and measuring myself where I was. Not my weight, but just like how much could I do? Today I could walk, 20 minutes and I felt amazing. Mark that down, keep moving forward. Because I think we just want to see the end game, and we can easily pity ourselves where we are struggling. But the struggle, the progress is the whole thing. We're always going to be looking different and appearing in the world different, emotionally, physically, mentally. That was and continues to be like a life lesson that I take and I try to impart over and over with patients and clients on a daily basis.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you recommend people journal and to keep track of that thing? Is that as important like as you're kind of going through that process? Because you're so spot on. Oh, there you go.
Yes. Writing it down, having the physical example or on paper of the outcomes, like you tend to forget or minimize your success.
Right.
Especially as women, especially as if you're in a struggling or low mental place. Yeah, okay, so I walked like 25 minutes today. I used to be able to run 4 miles. Like, what's that? No, you couldn't walk more than 5 minutes yesterday. So having this, like when you're feeling at your lowest, you're like, wow, look at all I've actually achieved. Wow, I'm so grateful I'm alive. And look at all the things I'm able to do now that I wasn't able to do before.
Yeah, exactly. Which actually kind of leads me to your most recent accident. Yeah, which I feel like, I can't remember if we had our pre-interview at that time or I found out about it on social media or something,
Mm-hmm.
but it was pretty significant.
Yeah. Yeah. Brooklyn Bridge bike accident, riding home from a client from Brooklyn. I woke up on the ground, had no idea, hand was bloody. Huge concussion. I had never had one before, so it was the first one. It was like, oh my God, I didn't even know what happened, but I just know that I was not okay when I woke up. And it was another instance. This was November of this couple of months ago. Another instance where who I was and what I was striving for had to be like knocked back down to zero. So I took myself to the doctor, got all the things, the tests, and just slowly had to recover with a lot of compassion and patience.
But I feel like it's maybe a little bit harder said than done sometimes. So tell me a little bit about how, like, what did that do for you? I mean, did that help that you were physically fit? I mean, do you think it would have been a lot worse? Do you think that because you have this belief system prior, you know, as you're struggling and really trying to figure out, how bad this is, how is this going to affect my life, and asking all those future questions of yourself, are you able to? I've never had a concussion, luckily, but I
Yeah.
know it's can be pretty really. My brother's had it. It's terrible.
Yeah. Couldn't look at a computer screen, couldn't be not nauseous for more than like, I couldn't focus on anything for more than 10 minutes before I was like, ugh. I would like lay down in between patients when I was working in the clinic. Um, did it help that I was physically fit? I think what helped is that I was like, okay, we've been here before. What are the tests that I need to do on myself? Meaning, do I just run back to the gym, or do I do a treadmill test to test where my system is and how I respond to exercise? This is all something you can do as a person, where you can like ask for help with a trainer, with a physical therapist, with whatever your injury is. Because if I didn't have that, I'd just be like showing up at the gym like wanting to throw up in the corner. And then potentially get more depressed because I can't do X, Y, or Z. Um, the biggest thing I think, what helped me recover alongside that was just, look, I'm not perfect at it, but going slow and knowing when to go slow. I'm a perfectionist. I like go 90 miles an hour, 12 hours a day, like blah, 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 blah. So the coming down off of that and not feeling like ashamed of that. For some people, this may sound insane, but like, if I can do it, I will do it, But in these cases, when you're knocked on your butt, um, I honestly say it's so more emotional the recovery than it is the physical. I don't know, hope that's getting across. It's like managing how you feel about yourself. I reached out to therapists. I went back into, talk therapy just to get my brain around the recovery aspect. Because when you're with a concussion specifically, the tendency for depression to increase is very high. Because I watched and I poured myself through the research and the videos and all this stuff. The brain is one organ that, like, so if your heart is messed up and there's something happened to your heart, we do certain exercises and we do imaging and we do tests and we do take medicine for that thing. The brain is one thing where we're like, oh, you're depressed? I don't know. Let's just like talk about your feelings. Like, pick yourself up off the, like, why is the brain any different? So I knew that going in, and I just kept trying to ask for help when I knew I was falling down. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways.
I think that's so important. I mean, so I'm assuming you didn't train or you didn't teach or you were out of work for a while. I mean, at what point do you like? I think there's just so much fear also, right? And deciphering what is actually real and what is kind of imagined, um, and when to kind of start pushing yourself, and when you know that it really is depression, that you can't, you say, well, I can't walk 5 minutes more today, or
Yeah.
how do you overcome those hurdles? Because you're right, the mental hurdles far surpass the physical ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think kind of what I alluded to before, or kind of what I mentioned before, is that having the data was important. There are actually, in the case of concussion, like there are in many other injuries, physical, um, are tests that tell you when you're ready for certain things. So I would do these like treadmill tests and to see how I responded to X amount of minutes at X amount of intensity with a heart rate monitor. And so I knew when I went a little too far, my symptoms would kick up. I would start to feel dizzy, and I was like, okay, I can't go there. I have to stay within this zone. So those are like real hands-on things that aren't like, well, I'm just out of shape because I had an injury and like, blah. No, this is like my brain is not well right now, so I need to take this slower. And again, back to what I said before, managing my expectations of myself. Because especially if you are a high achieving person, business, in fitness, in anything, when you can't be that thing for whatever reason, we tend to take all of the blame on of ourselves. Like, yeah, I had a kid, I had 3 kids. Yeah, oh yeah, no, I should be able to work out. I should be able, should. And that's the emotional side of tracking, asking for help, and just saying like, this is going to be a long game instead of I'm working out so I can lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Like it's a long game, and however long it takes, it takes. And these are, let me just say, like, I wasn't born with this stuff. I had to learn it the hard way over and over and over. I think the big picture that life, this stuff has shown me, and hopefully your listeners can sort of take this in, is like, in a way, in a cosmic way, these are all events that happened to me to teach me very valuable lessons that I would not maybe have learned other ways. Slowing down, compassion for my patients, my clients, understanding like and loving my body for what it is, just what it is, no matter what, not what it looks like, not how much body fat I have, not how much whatever. And those are the things I try to impart on in my day to day, my business, my clients, everybody.
That's so beautiful and so wonderful. And it's like, it's so, I don't know why it takes us decades to learn this stuff and sometimes lifetimes and we still don't learn it. And they're very simple, but really, really difficult to find. So, I mean, you're a PT, so you're dealing with the physical aspects of people's bodies every single day. And people are always injured when they're coming to you. So I guess, do you find that you're, providing kind of mental therapy as well as you're treating them physically?
100%. I like identify kind of as like a holistic therapist in that way, because you're coming to me not as a lower back. You're coming to me as a whole person. And why has it been 4 years since you didn't ask for help? Didn't go for treatment? Or, what are the aspects of your life that are happening that's maybe contributing to this? And when I was a younger physical therapist or younger trainer, it's just like, do the thing, do the stretch, just do A plus B and C. What don't you get? And it's so silly because we are more than just our body parts. So I do a lot more listening now to my patients than I do talking, because they have to come to it themselves. I cannot tell them the aspects that they need to change in their life. I help guide them, of course. I ask the right questions, but I listen about 80% of the time. And I know that is what sets me apart, because I could get your shoulder fixed up in a second. I could say no words. We could talk about your life, none. But will the problem come back? Probably. Because, like I said, we are whole human beings with whole lives.
Right. That's so, I mean, with all these experiences and you've given us, so kind of to wrap things up, what are some of the most valuable lessons that you really want people to walk away with? That they don't need to go and, have a severe bike accident. I mean, granted, we're human beings. So unfortunately, it sometimes takes very serious accidents or whatever to wake us up. But is there anything that you kind of want to share with people, just kind of as a summary or a nutshell about how people should really be approaching their health?
It's a great question. I think to bring it present moment, the pandemic, I think, has shined a light on the fact that we have been so spinning around in our lives, running here to that meeting, to that thing, the kid, the family, the job. And when it all slows down, all we're left with is ourselves. And of course, being home all this time with nowhere else to go could create its own set of problems. But becoming aware and in tune to the day-to-day of how you're actually feeling is what probably is the most powerful tool you could take away from this whole thing. Because when we're so go, we are not in the present moment. We discard our own pain, we discard our own needs, we let ourselves get away from the things we say or think that we might want. And when we let ourselves get away and we're not aware, then that's where the shame and the shoulds and all that stuff comes in. So whatever practice that may look like for you, I love to journal. I also meditate. I also see a therapist. I also go to group therapy. Like there's so many things that may look different for everyone, but to keep asking the questions, keep going in deeper to yourself will lead you to the answers faster than any other thing that we're trying to chase and make those problems go away.
That's great. That's great. So if people want to know more about you or follow you or whatever, how do they do that and where do they go?
Yeah, I have a bunch of different websites, but probably the best place, the hub of it all, is my social media at Dr. Laura Miranda, DrLauraMiranda.
On everything or on
Everything.
Instagram?
Everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
everywhere.
got it all. So yeah, you can hit me up there. Definitely send questions, reach out, say hi. I'm very responsive, and I post a lot of great content, both emotional, mental stuff, as well as physical.